I guess I should
When
have done
people
something,
describe particularly evil individuals or regimes, why is it that they use the terms Nazi or fascist,
They're the
but
worst.
almost never communist?
Yes.
Given the unparalleled amount of human suffering communists have caused, why is communist so much less a term of revulsion than Nazi?
Okay, I'm going to make a
killed
post
70 million people
One second, I
in
want to make a
China,
point
more
on
than
this, guys.
Oh, 70 million. 70 million.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
70 million. That's
It's like
the number
everybody
they're
in China.
That was literally the population of China at the time.
Literally. Literally. But
Everybody died. The end.
Everybody.
That's the end of history. That's what Fukuyama was talking about in his little book.
literally everyone. The thing with this, though, with this earlier point, is that why everyone associates Nazism with evil is because Nazism is inherently evil. Like, the idea is literally our race is superior, and we have to go kill all the other races so we can take what is rightfully ours, which we believe in Trump. Communism is communism is the workers control the means of production. There is like nothing inherently evil about that.
Obviously there are a lot of different tendencies of communism, but there are, plenty of communists who say that Stalin or Mao or whoever had dudes that they weren't really communists, etc., etc. But how many Nazis do you see who say that Hitler or whoever weren't really Nazis? They betrayed the true ideas of National Socialism. How many people? How often do you see that? I think that's a pretty key difference right there.
The longest of all Nazis are the ones who say that Hitler sucked because he didn't kill enough Jews.
Right.
Yeah, really.
Those are the wokest Nazis.
Yeah, those are Nazbol. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Anyway,
There wasn't a Nazi. He was he was a national communist or something.
So they're throwing out this typical argument here. Basically, it's an argument by body count, right? Like, commies killed more than the Nazis, even though, first of all, it's a bullshit comparison because you're comparing like a dozen different countries to one country. So already you're being
dishonest much
as
longer
fuck.
too.
Yeah.
And also the numbers themselves are likely played up for an agenda. We will never really know how much they killed. I mean,
for sure. I mean, whenever they say 100 million, that is the highest possible estimate that came up with.
I heard 200 million.
Yeah,
it's not even an estimate. Actually.
That's another thing. The numbers vary so wildly.
Yeah.
Guys, actually today when I was at Labor Day parade in Toronto, there was some Trump supporters holding up signs saying Mao killed 80 million, Stalin killed 30 million. With those two guys alone, you've already exceeded 100 million.
So yeah, it's up to 110 million now.
Mao made Stalin an anarchist.
Yeah.
All right, anyway.
I made an entire video about how Mao was actually super libertarian. Mao was not authoritarian enough.
All right, let's continue. So 70 million. I'm guessing Soviet Union 20 million.
I don't know what that's about.
20 million people in the Soviet Union, not including about 5 million Ukrainians, and almost 1 out of every 3 Cambodians. And communists enslaved entire nations
I'm gonna pause
in
that.
Russia.
Pol Pot. Want to know who stopped Pol Pot? The communist Vietnamese. So if you want to thank someone for stopping the Cambodian genocide, thank the commie Vietnamese in their continued victory streak ever since they got rid of the Japanese.
They ruined the lives of well over 1 billion people.
What?
So why doesn't communism have the same terrible reputation as Nazism?
1 billion now?
Reason number 1.
Wait, pause it.
There is, simply put, widespread ignorance.
What? 1 billion?
He said 1 billion people.
Well, he said ruin the lives, so now it's beyond death toll. It's just like anyone who lived there had their whole life ruined by it.
Yeah.
That's referring to
having your life ruined is a pretty abstract. That's a pretty abstract category. How do you measure that?
I broke up with a cute Russian Soviet girl, and it was during the communist times, and I blame communism for my bad relationship.
Yeah, that's how the whole Red Pill movement started.
Communism can fix a lot of things, but not a heartbreak.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad.
She left you for
of the communist record. Whereas both right and left loathe Nazism and teach its evil history,
Or girls.
The left, and I'm talking about the left, not traditional liberals, like Harry Truman or John F. Kennedy,
he finally
has
got
never
it.
loathed communism. And since the left dominates academia, almost no one teaches communism.
Communism's evil history. I've read that book.
Almost no one teaches communism's
evil history. Oh, it's communism's evil history, not
Reason number
communism's
two.
evil.
The Nazis carried out the
That's
Holocaust.
a lot more scientific.
Nothing matches the Holocaust for pure evil. The rounding up of virtually every Jewish man, woman, child, and baby on the European continent and sending them to die is unprecedented and unparalleled.
Well,
the communists killed far more people than the Nazis, but never matched the Holocaust in the systemization of genocide. The uniqueness of the Holocaust and the enormous attention rightly paid to it have helped ensure that Nazism has a worse name than communism.
I'm at least glad that they're not like saying
communism is based on nice.
That they're the same thing, you know.
What?
I'm at least glad they're not saying that they're the same thing.
Oh yeah.
The only words he could come up to describe it is unprecedented and unparalleled. That those aren't really necessarily negative.
Sounding theories. Nazism isn't. It's based on heinous sounding theories. Intellectuals in general, including, of course, the intellectuals who write history, are seduced by words. So much so that they deem actions as less significant than words.
The Republicans never
For that reason,
use words
they haven't focused nearly as much attention on the horrific actions of communists as they have on the horrific actions of the Nazis. They dismiss the evils of communists as perversions of true communism.
True.
But they regard...
It's not a perversion. It's dealing with the situation that they're in. Oh, my God. Nazi Germany had no one threatening to crush them, just waiting at their borders to destroy them. Hitler did not deal with that. He didn't. In fact, he did the opposite. He invaded everyone else. So how the fuck can you compare them?
And Hitler was supported by the bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
He was supported by the rich capitalists if they weren't Jewish.
And another thing, communists didn't intentionally set out to kill an entire group of people just for the fuck of it.
I mean,
the kulaks could have been handled a bit better.
It's hard to unpack because some of it is like they did this wrong, they shouldn't have done that, they fucked this up. Some of it is like these people were gonna fucking sabotage everything and kill everyone, so we had to do something about them. And you just take all that shit together, and then once you got that, the numbers are blown up, and fucking the Holodomor they double based on projected birth rate, and they call those deaths. All this shit.
It's kind of like how in World War II they do the cost of communism from the Soviet Union. They count all German casualties.
Oh, and all the casualties
Nazi
in the North Arctic.
Correctly as the logical and inevitable results of Nazism. Reason number 4. Germans have thoroughly exposed the evils of Nazism, have taken responsibility for them, and have attempted to atone for them. Russians have not done anything similar regarding Lenin's or Stalin's horrors.
Russian does not
so again with the Holodomor here, they're talking about like stuff like the Russian government does not recognize the Holodomor as such.
Holodomor didn't happen.
Yeah, is he trying to?
I'm not going to.
Is he trying to?
Holodomor was a hoax, inside job.
Is he trying to? Is he trying to capitalize on this anti-Russian thing that's going on nowadays?
Pretty much, yeah. That's the key demographic.
So the thing about that is, there aren't really that many countries in the world that recognize the Holodomor as such, because,
most recognize it as bullshit.
Saying that you recognize the Holodomor means that you are saying that the Soviet government intentionally wanted to kill off the Ukrainians because they, whatever the fuck reason they would have to do
and
that.
To everybody watching,
Ukrainian nationalism.
To everybody watching, Hoxhaism here is Ukrainian, by the way.
Yes, and I can tell you my grandparents and all that, they told me about that. They lived in their Stalin, and they liked him a lot.
Yeah.
I can actually tell you what really happened there. Of course, it's through word of mouth, but it's still... Yeah. Essentially what happened is the kulaks got really pissed off that they started having to collectivize their farms, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they started going up in open revolts. And when they did that, the kulaks were a far right. They were like a party, essentially. Think of it like that. They were a far-right, pro-capitalist political party that had very positive inflections of the Nazis and other things like that.
That's them.
And so these guys, they started coming up and they started burning synagogues, stuff like that, killing the local Jewish population, killing a lot of the peasant population, burning their crops, all that. They were in open revolt, they were pissed, and the Red Army originally tried to do a peaceful coversion with them, but eventually just steamrolled their ass.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
There are several historical interpretations of the Soviet famine of 32 to 33. One of them, on the far right, that Ukrainian nationalists really believe, is that Stalin was just so evil that he wanted to kill all the Ukrainians. There are a number of problems with this because, you know, the famine was also in parts of Russia and in the Kazakhstan, so what was going on there doesn't really fit into the idea that it was killing Ukrainians as such. The other historical interpretations were, you know, they had a famine, they tried to deal with it.
What would be the gain from that?
I don't know, just to crush Ukrainian nationalism and the kulaks.
My point on it is that I do believe that millions died, but it was just like a mixture of kulaks being kulaks and just like complications and trying to relieve. Like I will admit that they should have done.
Nobody doubts that.
It seems like it was. I don't think it was any one factor that caused it.
Yeah, definitely.
And by the way, that's another thing.
And I don't doubt there were some racist, officers in charge, but like, you know, it was still the early 20th century.
They have historians like Mark Togger who said, you know, it was a famine that was caused from bad weather. They tried to deal with it. They did what they can.
That's really what happened.
Maybe they fucked up. Maybe they could have done other things better. Maybe they could have.
Well, actually, I have another thing I can tell you.
Yeah.
So what happened was, you know, Stalin, of course, he was not the ultimate dictator. Sometimes I wish he was, but he wasn't. Because because his thing is that he believed that Ukraine should be strengthened with its military and its economy because the Nazis were licking their chops and looking at Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So Stalin believed that they should try to strengthen Ukraine's economy, allow it to become more self-sufficient and have a decent defense. Now, a lot of people disagreed with Stalin. They just wanted to protect Russia, while Stalin had the idea of protecting everyone in the Union, which is why Stalin was popular in many places like Kazakhstan and Ukraine, especially Muslim-majority nations.
It was a number of factors, I think. I don't think there was any one factor. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why communism isn't as hated as Nazism, because they even said this in the video. Nazism is the only reason the Holocaust happened. I mean, unless you don't think the Holocaust happened, then that's undeniable.
Lenin, the father of Soviet communism, is still widely venerated in Russia.
Hell yeah, he is.
And as
thank God.
And as
venerated on my wall.
Regards Stalin, as University of London Russian historian Donald Rayfield puts it, quote, people still deny, by assertion or implication, Stalin's Holocaust.
He didn't have
Stalin killed Jews?
Even less so as China exposed the greatest mass murderer and enslaver of them all, Mao Zedong. Mao remains revered in China.
Okay. So let me tell you how that's bullshit.
Enslaver.
That's basically this whole show.
Let me tell you how that's bullshit.
He liberated slaves.
Okay, so one thing with Stalin, they said that Stalin was something about the Holocaust. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so with Mao, again, there was a famine. He could have done something differently. Maybe he fucked it up in some ways.
Well, you know, another thing about China is a fucking huge country, man. I mean, there's billions of people in China, even back then. So, yeah, I mean, what is the proportion of people who died in the Chinese famine? And compare that with the proportion of the percentage of Jewish people who died in the Holocaust. Basically, more than two-thirds, of European Jews died in the Holocaust. To change topics a bit, he mentioned Lenin, Stalin, and he's talking about Mao now. He said they aren't reviled like the Nazis were. He said those guys, Lenin, Stalin, and Mao, are still revered in the countries that they ruled over. In part, it's because they actually, it's because they actually improved shit in those countries. I mean, I'm an anarchist, so I don't think those guys are perfect by any means. But you know,
at least more compared to the monarchy before them.
Yeah, I mean, it's undeniable.
Feudalism in China.
Yeah, living standards went up. Russia before the revolution, most people lived in like huts of like 20 people without electricity or running water or anything. For most people in quasi-feudalist feudalist Russia, and the Russian Revolution changed that. It brought power and electricity to most of those people. People's lived longer, etc., etc. It's not comparable. That's why people still like these dudes. That's why they're still here.
People lived longer on average than they did in the United States at the time.
Yeah. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, life expectancy in Russia just took a nosedive, by the way.
Socialism is kind of necessary for,
Yes.
For life.
Having a centralized planned
Talk to your doctor about socialism.
Is the only thing that can really prevent famines.
And in China, I mean, it was very similar. I mean, it was a backwater. It was a giant backwater with millions of people with horrible living standards, people living in extreme poverty compared to nothing today.
Yeah, and they were suffering in poverty and going through famines all the time. But and then once they went communist, all of a sudden it's a huge tragedy.
Yeah, and another thing, Holodomor and the Chinese famine. After those, famines stopped in those countries.
And there have been many worse ones before them.
There was like a famine or two every decade prior to revolutions in those countries. It was just a way of life.
Once the holy man Stalin, bless his heart, Sheikh Joseph Stalin, once he collectivized the farms and stuff, no more famines. That was it. That was the end.
Yep.
Until the end of the Soviet Union, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's why these people haven't been. That's why people in Russia and China haven't just disowned them like the Germans did with the Nazis, because the Nazis basically did nothing right. They just ruined everybody's lives. They didn't improve anything.
Hey, wait. At least out of the Nazis, we got the GDR.
Huh.
Yeah.
True.
All right, let's.
China. Every Chinese currency note has his picture
Oh
on
my
it.
God! It's almost
until
like
Russia and China and Vietnam and Cuba and North Korea.
He said Chinese currency has Mao's.
Who else are they going to put on? Sun Yat-sen?
He put this genocidal dictator is on China's currency. George Washington and all that shit is on our currency.
Andrew Jackson. Have you heard of
Andrew Jackson? Yeah. What do you think PragerU's opinion on that issue was? Do you think they were in favor of getting rid of Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill and replacing her with?
It's un-American. You can't do that.
That's our heritage. You can't change.
What about America, man? Who will think of America?
Yeah, so he's a complete hypocrite.
Somebody
about the Chinese currency.
Probably. I mean, we don't
their
know,
history.
That's probably what they would say because they have a video saying like, we don't want to apologize for America. We don't want to. It's the best place in the world. You want to talk about racism? Get out of here.
Isn't that old anti-communist propaganda that goes, we do not want to hurt you. We want to help you. You belong to the state now. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm willing to bet $20 that PragerU is not in favor of putting Harriet Tubman on the $20.
They probably have some reason.
We get Emma Goldman on the 50.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Man. All right,
Eugene Debs on the 100. Okay.
Korea acknowledge the evils their countries committed under communism. Communism's evils will remain less known than the evils of the German state under Hitler.
Oh my God.
Reason number 5. Communists murdered mostly their own people. The Nazis, on the other hand, killed very few fellow Germans.
What?
World opinion, that largely meaningless.
What the fuck is he talking about?
Guys, German Jews aren't people. That's what he's saying. German Jews aren't people, dude.
Saying a German Jew is one German. That's the most
like just because a huge portion of them were Polish Jews and Czechoslovakian.
Dude, PragerU is secretly a Nazi organization, guys.
Oh my! Well, no shit.
Dude, do you think like I want to put it past like put Richard Spencer's like on a video on here?
Oh my god! No, like, Richard Spencer's holding up the teleprompter.
Yeah, he's right behind that.
You know what's weird about that? They said that the Nazis, well, if he's implying that German Jews aren't Germans, then that's basically a Nazi thing. You see what I'm getting?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and maybe that's being a bit technical, but
maybe he's saying they weren't even people, though. You know, like it's possible that he's implying that they aren't even
not
people.
At all,
you know,
or just
not
mostly?
Not necessarily that they aren't just German citizens.
All right.
He said that communists aren't as reviled because they mostly kill their own people. Well,
kill yourself.
The thing what happened is that the Nazis invaded. They invaded most of Europe.
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of what that implies. That's kind of a big deal. But invading other countries and slaughtering, all those people just because, you arbitrarily think your race is better than them, that's kind of, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, but that makes a difference for what it means in the future should these ideologies come to power again. We know that Nazism, we have a good reason to believe it will necessarily kill like fucking half the population because they have their, ridiculous race theory. Whereas communism, it's like, this happened because of that. If we don't have a famine, then that won't happen. And if we don't have saboteurs, then that won't happen. So how the fuck are they comparing them? For the purposes of evaluating the ideologies.
Even if you accept that communism has supposedly killed more people than Nazism, well, yeah, first of all, you have to keep in mind that, communism lasted a lot longer than Nazism did.
Also, bear in mind, China and the Soviet Union had much larger populations. I don't want to sound apologetic towards any actual unjust deaths, but when you order a certain percentage to be axed off in your country, the actual quantity will be higher in China and the Soviet Union. So I'm not going to apologize for any actual unjust deaths, but that could be a reason as to why there's such a massive inflation.
No, that's exactly what happened.
And let's be honest, let's talk about capitalist deaths. I mean, for fuck's sake, let's get the death toll in India, millions upon millions, but then the capitalists will defend that by saying, oh, India has 1 billion people, but yeah, so does China. And the deaths, the tens of millions of deaths the 10 million deaths in Congo, and the Ottoman genocides against the Armenians, Greeks, and the Syrians. And we all know they're going to move on to the Arabs and Kurds, which Erdogan is probably in the midst of doing now.
Mm.
And the capitalists still refuse to recognize their own genocides.
Responsible for
That's not real capitalism, though. Haven't you heard?
All right, let's
use that excuse. We aren't.
It's corporatism.
And is the murder of members of one's own group far less noteworthy than the murder of outsiders.
Yes.
That's why, for example, blacks killing millions of fellow blacks in Africa elicits almost no attention from world opinion.
What the fuck are you going to do about it?
And reason number 6.
They're being exploited
in the view of the
by
left,
corporations.
the last good war
They have access to their own resources.
was World War II.
Yeah, that's kind of one thing they're right about, because Vietnam and Korea and Saddam and all those people weren't trying to take over the entire fucking world, first of all.
And being cartoonishly evil.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And another thing, all those other wars since World War II, U.S. supported dictatorships.
Yeah.
We weren't any better than these communist regimes that we supposedly went over there. We weren't going over there to protect freedom. We were going over there to protect the market.
We were arming the Taliban and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We still love Saudi Arabia.
The left doesn't regard wars against the left as good. Well, fucking dumb.
I mean, it's painfully obvious to anyone with eyes that the Vietnam War was pretty much, it was a clusterfuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
And dude, like freaking American soldiers of Vietnam were killing each other, man. Like, you know, they would literally like whenever like a general did this like pass by the fence, they would say "Gooks on the fence," and they shoot him down.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Saturday morning cartoon. It wasn't, you know, freedom and democracy versus, you know, the evil communists.
It wasn't a John Wayne movie.
Yeah,
they obviously wanted communism anyways.
Were recorded as deserting to the Vietnam side.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. 50,000 soldiers abandoned the U.S. and fought for the Vietnamese.
Really? Morale was falling apart,
Wow.
I gotta read about that.
The thing about the Korean and Vietnam War that PragerU just doesn't seem to know for some reason in all their videos about it. You know, people were forced into those wars. We had to draft in both of those wars.
And that's only the people that they drafted were on purpose communists, so that they would, you know, get rid of them essentially.
Basically. So PragerU is basically they're shitting on liberals for having eyes, basically, because PragerU just has a ridiculous view of history. They think that Vietnam and Korea were just Saturday morning cartoons. They haven't researched these things at all, or maybe they have and they're just trying to bullshit people. But their view of history is just cartoonishly wrong. They couldn't possibly be more wrong.
The American war against Vietnamese communism is regarded as immoral.
It was immoral.
And the war against Korean communism and its Chinese communist backers is simply ignored.
They leveled the
until the left and all the institutions influenced by the left acknowledge how evil communism has been. We will continue to live in a morally confused world.
Morally confused.
In the meantime, all good people owe it to the victims of communism
is the epitome of moral stature. They never done anything wrong.
That they fucking bombed North Korea until there was literally no building taller than one story left, and they couldn't just find anything to bomb anymore. So they're like, "Fuck it, just bomb anything now." There's nothing left anymore. They had to build everything from scratch. And they wonder why they're freaking out on DMZ. Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's laughable. I mean, it's laughable how black and white their worldview is, and just how uninformed